make some words. And I just want to be really clear that the amendment that we have, which I have right here, which is restoration of and maintaining basically the commitment of maintaining TPP, is the amendment that Mr. Devers has here, which we fully support. This is exactly what we're asking for. And I just want to make sure that we all understand that we in Princeton should be happy about this. We really appreciate the efforts Mr. Devers is doing, not on a personal level, but leading and helping other districts and at TPP get this straight. Yes. So, thank you very much. And as we go upstairs to testify, we need to bring our vim and our vigor and our conviction, and like Princeton does, like we want the congeniality where we're Final Four, we bring our passion but very respectful because we have good people on our side, and so of course we'll be here. So,
thank you. I appreciate it. Any other questions?
Scott, how much does the state actually stand to
really dig through this and fix this once and for all. But in the interim, we've got to do something to honor that promise. So some of the conversations is, let's deal with the school part first, because TPP also affects local government. But the schools are the basic things that we need to honor because we made a promise to them. And although we want to try to restore some of the local government fund, there's just not that much flexibility in our current budget to do both. So we're going to work with our senators too. Senator Sykes and I have talked a lot about this particular issue and how we can also try to find a way to do both at some level. But these cuts are definitely for Sycamore, and you go a little bit further north, Lakota and Mason are going to be hit very hard by this. So for us, it's about educating kids, number one, and then number two, trying to find a way to work with our local governments to restore them at the same time. So when you've got about 1/35 of the budget, flexibility, but it gets to be a challenge.
When you say just a moment ago that basically you are kicking the can down the road every 2 years, explain what the history of that has been, and when you say restore TPP, are you restoring at this level, or are you going to go all the way back to what the schools originally getting?
That's a fair statement. I mean, really, I would be happy with holding our schools flat for now. Sycamore's done a great job, and when you look at their history, they've done a very good job of holding their spending flat for about a decade. And they've done a wonderful job there, a model of trying to do things right, and at the same time, while they're holding spending flat for a decade, they have some of the best educational results in the state, arguably. So to take away their funding when they are the model in Ohio on how to be fiscally responsible doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And Princeton's done a very good job in educating the kids. We have a lot of diversity in the district and a lot of special needs. We've got a lot of different languages spoken, and to take away these funds is going to limit their ability to teach the children that are in their district.
So basically your amendment holds them where they are right now.
That's the hope, is that we can hold them where they are right now and then move forward into a study process so we can do a long-term fix for all school funding.
Sorry.
In the spirit of improving your process and efficiency, I'm going to read my testimony. All this testimony will be on file. And what we would like to do is, during question and answer, and I hope there are many, to help with this issue, the community members, business members, staff, teachers that we have here can help address those questions, if that's okay. Also, before I read my comments, I want to say you can see by just a short glance, Princeton's a very diverse school district. We're very unique. We're about 40% African American, about 25% Caucasian, 18 almost going on 20% Hispanic. We're almost 20% special education. We're 65% free and reduced lunch. We're also the proud owner of a famous graduate here in Ohio State, Ms. Kelsey Mitchell, who's your basketball player of the year, probably for the country, but certainly for you. We have many famous students who've done extremely well. So we're a very unique district, kind of unlike an urban district, unlike a suburban district. So I'm a recently retired director of research and development for Procter & Gamble. My university training is in chemical engineering and finance. I joined Princeton School Board 8 years ago because of the importance of education to our local and global businesses and the positive impact high-quality technical education has on our students. Over the 8 years, I've had to develop an expertise in not just educational governance, which I expected, but unexpectedly a deep experience in school financing, which I think you all agree is a challenge. Due to the tremendous impact TPP, we all know it's tangible personal property tax, and CAT tax, commercial activity tax, has on our schools, community, and businesses. From a school's financing perspective, we have worked very hard to educate our community on the impact of TPP as legislation and the promises made to replace TPP revenue. We have worked to inform the community on the impact of TPP reimbursement on our children's education, local taxpayer requirements, property values, and the impact on businesses, and importantly, the impact of promises not kept. In Princeton, we know in Princeton, TPP in 2007 was $24 million. That was 30% of our budget. We know that TPP was replaced by the CAT tax for the good of business development in Ohio, which we fully support because good business development supports us all, and especially in Princeton. We know that it was promised to replace our local TPP revenue with the CAT tax revenue. We know that the CAT tax has been successful. We realize it got off to a slow start in the tough economy, but we do realize it's raising over $1.6 billion, and there's plenty of revenue raised from that. We know, despite promises, we have already lost $8 billion in TPP reimbursements. We know that we have had to fill these gaps, this $8 billion gap, based with raised taxes. We did a 6.5 mil operating levy, the largest in Princeton's history, went into effect 2 years ago. We've had to cut 150 employees. We're now down to 700 employees. We've had to trim academic programs, increase class sizes, cut healthcare benefits, outsource transportation, pursue shared services, and many more to fill these holes. We know that in 2011, legislation was passed to permanently replace the remaining $16.1 million in TP revenue that we now receive, which as we speak is about 24% of our budget. We know that it is proposed by the governor, and now perhaps by this committee, that these reimbursements be phased out and eliminated. We understand that the current funding formula, as we all call it, proposes changes to offer help, but for Princeton, it's only very minor help. And we do not replace, and it does not replace the bigger part of the funds that provides a stable, sustainable solution. We know for us locally to replace $16.1 million, it would require about 12 mils in local tax increase, or a reduction of 160 staff. We know that these types of changes would decimate our school system. We know these levels of tax increases are not affordable to our community, which we are below average in income, below state average income by about one deviation. Princeton communities have worked the past 50 years also to develop a strong business. Ford transmission plant is on fire. It touches every transmission in cars and trucks in North America. GE jet engines is back and growing again. The associated local supported business, supply chains, and many other large businesses like General Mills and others and services are healthy now at Princeton. We have survived the economic recession and thriving and surviving. The major problem is during this time frame, the school system has not benefited from the success and development of business. As a matter of fact, I commented earlier, we were down $8 million in revenue during this time frame. Our future economic development relies on a healthy education system. Our businessmen know that. You're proposing to decrease funding even further in areas where you should be helping support our economic development as well as our children. Those of you who were around in 2005 and 2007 and understand term limits, many of you were not, know that not only did you promise to return TP revenue to our schools and communities, our local businesses were also promised that their local contributions would be returned. Excuse me, would be returned. For proper economic development, our businesses know they need the local communities to be financially healthy and provide quality service, educated employees, and reasonable housing. So as a summary, 20% of our revenues is not a sustainable, replaceable place for our schools, students, and communities, and does not support the future economic development in a healthy way for the foreseeable future. We implore you to sustain the current TPP legislation and local revenue replacement. Our Princeton community, business community, earns much of the Southwest Ohio's CAT tax dollars of that $1.6 billion. And we think it's only fair that we received at least some fair share of it, and we keep some modicum of the promise that was made in 2005. We know the impact of this decision, and we hope and pray that you do too. We thank you very much for your time and your hard work as public elected officials, and we'd be delighted to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you.